Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished professional, Tochi Ginigeme. Tochi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Tochi is the founder of the Mesh Venture Partners, and she's currently the Deputy Managing Director of the Oxford Seed Fund. So, Tochi, let's start by asking you a little bit about your own journey and about the Oxford Seed Fund.
No, absolutely. And thanks again for having me here. It's a pleasure to meet with you and to connect with members of your audience who would eventually listen to this. My journey into entrepreneurship started years ago. As I like to say, I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. So for many years, that was the career path that I was introduced and inducted into. And then in the university, I studied economics. So I graduated as an economist almost 12 years ago now. And my first job actually was in the pension fund industry. Okay. So I worked in a pension fund. I did a bit of investment banking, worked in FMCG. And then I realized that when I compared my corporate career to my background and the entrepreneurship path that I was used to thanks to my parents, I realized there was a bit of a disconnect. Many entrepreneurs do not have the resources that are available in the corporate world. So they're very limited in terms of how quickly their businesses could grow. So I founded Mesh in 2016 to kind of bridge this gap, to connect entrepreneurs with like minds that can help them scale their businesses, that can help them introduce their products into new markets. And I've been doing that since 2016. And then last year, I decided to go on an MBA program at the University of Oxford. Now, Oxford Seed Fund is a VC firm that lives within the Entrepreneurship Center there at the university. So I applied to the position of Deputy Managing Director, and I got in, and I've done that now for almost a year. It will be a year at the end of September.
How wonderful! How wonderful! So let's talk now a little bit about entrepreneurship, and since your new venture is going to be supporting a lot of startup entrepreneurs, I think the next few questions will be very relevant for a lot of young people. So my first question is that what key factors differentiate an entrepreneurial mindset from any other mindset?
This is such a good question, Ashutosh. And I must say the great debate is, are entrepreneurs made, or is it some innate quality that people are born with? My view on that is a bit different. I think every one of us has the potential or the ability to become an entrepreneur. And when you think of entrepreneurship, it's just around the notion of creating something out of nothing, or bringing an idea to life, or seeing things in a unique and different way. You know, and I think each and every one of us has that potential in us. It doesn't matter what field you're educated in. It doesn't matter what your background is.
Right.
I think that everyone has a special skill to create something. And so that mindset is innate in each and every individual all across the world. But when you talk about who is actually an entrepreneur, you can have that potential within you, but if you don't actually do anything with it, then it doesn't become manifest, right? And so the entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is something that everyone has. It's the ability to create. It's the ability to see something in a unique way. It's the ability to identify problems and potential solutions. But what takes you from that mindset perspective to actually becoming an entrepreneur is your ability to overcome inertia and act. So entrepreneurs, I think, have a really strong bias for action. They identify the problem, they see the solution, and then they go ahead and do something about it. And many a time I find most people get stuck in the identifying phase. You identify the problem, and then that's it. but the entrepreneurs are the risk takers who go the extra step to actually do something about it.
Fascinating. Great response. Thank you, Tochi. My next question is that, when you talk about the role of continuous learning in cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset, what do you mean by that?
Continuous learning is so critical, especially in the world of today, right? Centuries or even decades ago, it would take so long for information to be disseminated. But today we have information at our fingertips. That has come with a cost, right? That means most markets, most economies, most consumers even are more likely to change their minds. They have access to information at light speed and access to volume of information that has not been available before now, right? And so in order for entrepreneurs who are these risk takers, who are pushing the boundaries and pushing the envelopes, in order for them to keep up with the current pace of evolution, they must continue to learn. And every time I speak to young entrepreneurs or folks who are building their businesses, I emphasize the importance of not building in a silo. Because sometimes you're so laser focused on that one goal, on that one target, that you forget that the world does not operate in a vacuum. There are so many different factors that can influence your product, your business, your mission. And if you don't take all of that into cognizance, then you stand a real risk. And so I think that's where continuous learning comes in. It's a conscious decision to understand what is going on, what is the latest technology, what are my competitors doing, what are my consumers doing, what are they saying, how do they feel about the products. So it's more of a lifestyle, I would say, the value of continuous learning and a virtue, if you will, especially for entrepreneurs, than just something that you should tick off.
Well said. Well said. And what would you say are some common misconceptions about an entrepreneurial mindset? For example, I've often said that an entrepreneur sees an opportunity in everything. I'd love to get your perspective.
The biggest misconception in my view, and as someone who's worked in corporate, has an advanced business degree in management, and now, as a founder myself, the biggest misconception I see is that entrepreneurs can fix all problems. Here's a contrarian view. I don't think that entrepreneurs are needed in every situation.
Right.
If you're looking to innovate, if you're looking to change the status quo, if you're looking to problem solve, then you need an entrepreneur to solve the problem. You need someone who's willing to take the risks, who understands problem solving, who has a bias for action like we spoke about earlier. But then, like every cycle, right, you get to a point where it's almost like the process is going on auto cruise. You don't need disruption at every single stage of every single process. I think there's a point where entrepreneurial capabilities are most valuable in a company, in a team. But I also think there's some point where we need people who know, like we say, how to make trains run on time. These are not the most disruptive people, but that's important as well, because stability is needed before you can then grow, re-innovate.
Well said. Well said. And how does resilience play a role in creating such a mindset?
Resilience is such a key factor. When I think of resilience, I think of grit. One of my favorite books on that is by Angela Duckworth. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she has, it's a fascinating book on grit. If you haven't read it, I recommend it to every entrepreneur who's listening or founder who's listening. But resilience is what drives you. It's almost like the discipline that keeps you going, even when it looks like there might be no light at the tunnel. And so entrepreneurs often find themselves, or founders in general, often find themselves sometimes on the side of the minority. Sometimes you're not the most liked or the most popular, but you need resilience to keep going even in the face of challenges. And so it's such a critical part of the success formula. But more interesting, and one of the key takeouts from that book that I referenced earlier, is that resilience can be cultivated. I think many times we categorize people on, oh, this person is resilient and this person is not. Or, oh, I don't think I'm a very resilient person. That's just how I am. It's a skill that can be built.
Right.
And it's one seed that I think bears fruits across different areas of an individual's life.
Well said. My next question is that how can an entrepreneur leverage failure? You know, we see a lot of failures, and yet entrepreneurs have the resilience to be able to bounce back.
How can entrepreneurs leverage failure? To me, failure that is not reflected upon, or when you fail at something and you don't go back to say, oh, in retrospect, how could I have done this differently? It's such a waste. In failure, there are so many lessons inherent in it. If only you take the time to reflect. So failure, people always say, oh, you have to fail to succeed. Failure is part of the process. It's almost logical. You cannot succeed at everything you do. And then they mentioned the great innovators like Thomas Edison and how many times he failed at, trying to invent the light bulb and etc. But the thing is, you have to keep a log, if you will, of what did I do? What was I seeking to achieve? Right. And how can I do things differently? So failure can be a lever for entrepreneurs who are looking to succeed, but only if you're strategic about it and you're taking a log and you're being focused, and then you're trying things differently. You take a log of what are you trying to do, or what did you fail at? You reflect on it, and then you reiterate and
well said. Well said. Could you also talk a little bit about the relationship between risk-taking and an entrepreneurial mindset, and how does an entrepreneur balance being creative and resilient while taking calculated risks?
What we say is no risks, no reward.
No pain, no gain, right?
No pain, no gain.
Yes.
So risk is a part of the process, right? In finance, you actually calculate. If you can calculate the risk, if you understand what the risks are, I think you found yourself on the better side of things. What happens many times is entrepreneurs are not faced with risk. Because if you know what the risk is and what the potential outcome is, then you can weigh it and say, well, is this risk worth this potential outcome? What entrepreneurs are faced with most of the time, I find that scares them, is uncertainty. When you do not know how things would go. Because if you know exactly what the risk is, then you're onto something. You can put a risk premium and you can say, well, if the payoff is this high, I will take the risk. Then there's some sort of negotiation, right, with the action you're about to embark on. But when there's uncertainty, it's like, I don't know if this will fail. I don't know if I will be disrupted. I don't know if anyone would want to work with me. Can I recruit people who aligned to this mission? Can I find the right team? There's so much uncertainty in the world of entrepreneurship. And I think that's the bit that we need to be a bit wary of. So for me, my motto is just as you said, no pain, no gain, no risk, no reward. But how can they leverage creativity? And it's just like the question around understanding failure and understanding and taking a log and being retrospective. But on creativity, I will say this, and this is something I preach to the founders that I also engage with. You have to be on the lookout for ideas. Right. There are so many ideas in the world, but sometimes we're limited to the amount of knowledge we've been exposed to. Right. Dedicate yourself to finding out, how do things work? How can I get a different idea to attack, to meet this mission? And that can come from reading. It's something that's simple, but it's not easy to do, like you and I were discussing earlier.
Correct. No, but it's a great thought.
Great thought.
Absolutely. But also, Tochi, tell me, how important is the ability to adapt in an entrepreneurial mindset, uh, especially in the light of what is happening in the world today?
Adaptation. There was actually a quote said by someone, I don't remember who now, but it was around adapt or die. And they were talking about this in relation to entrepreneurs who are launching new products, because you have to be able to adapt. And sometimes maybe not. Maybe your business actually cannot adapt to a new environment. If there's a government policy in a market that you've just entered into, and there seems to be no way around it, right? You don't have that level of influence, or for some reason, it's just a bad time for the business. You also have to be humble enough as an entrepreneur to realize, okay, I think we have reached a roadblock. It seems there's no way to go around it. Then what? What are our options at this point?
Right.
So being able to adapt, I think, in my view, is really asking at every stage of change or transformation, what are the options? It's 4 words, it's really simple, but it can bring so much mental clarity, especially when you're not sure how to navigate that terrain. Right. It's like, what are the options? And then you can go from there.
Great response. Thank you. A related question to that again also is that how, in your opinion, will the entrepreneurial mindset evolve with the rise of digital technology and online business?
Would there be an evolution in the entrepreneurial mindset? I'm curious. And we've had this debate back and forth with a few friends to say, especially with the onset of artificial intelligence and these large language models and all of the data training that's going on right now, to say, do we need a different type of entrepreneur? I think the mindset stays the same. I think there are basic principles of entrepreneurship that would stay the same. Okay. It's about problem solving, it's about innovation, risk taking, bias for action, iteration, failure. I think that there are basic principles that would stay the same. But in terms of the skills that are required, that would differ. If you're an entrepreneur in 2023 and you don't understand or you don't know how to utilize digital skills, that will be a gap that you should be looking to close or to fill sometime soon.
Well said. My next question to you is that how important or how can an entrepreneurial mindset help individuals who are working in the corporate world as leaders?
That's such a good question, because sometimes we don't think of the corporate world and entrepreneurship in the same bucket. But I agree with you on that one. I think that corporate leaders also need an entrepreneurial mindset. Because you need to take a certain amount of risk. You need to be willing to push the envelope. You need to be willing to innovate. And to a certain extent, right? Because it depends on where your corporation is. Are you a leader in the market? Are you a challenger? What is the mandate? What is the mission? So it does depend. I mean, if you're in a challenger market, or if you're a challenger in a certain market, then I don't expect you to be setting all the trends. Many times find is you kind of follow the leader because they dictate the pace of the industry.
Correct.
But I think that entrepreneurial mindset in corporate culture can be very beneficial.
Right.
I think it can help to keep the organization agile, such that it's aware of what's happening in the environment. I also think, and this one is important, I think that a leader with an entrepreneurial mindset has some level of empathy for the peers and the employees that they're responsible for, compared to leaders who do not have that mindset. And the reason I say that is that entrepreneurs are very particular about doing work that matters to them. And so if you're in an organization where your leader is entrepreneurial, many times you would find that they would try to inspire and motivate the team and make sure that everyone on the team is working on projects that are aligned to the company's mission, but also that feeds the soul of the employees and keeps the employees motivated.
Well said.
That's a positive.
Yeah.
That's a positive that leaders in the corporate world can take from the entrepreneur.
Well said. And I also think maybe we can give it a new name. I mean, a professional entrepreneur would be probably have a prenorial mindset.
Okay.
Professional entrepreneur. But moving on, I have time for two more questions for you. How important is mentoring in shaping and sustaining an entrepreneurial mindset?
It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And lacking, if I may say so.
Mm-hmm.
Many times, young professionals, at least when I was starting out as a young professional, I could probably draw a straight line between where my career started and how to become the VP of finance in an organization. It's very clear, right? It's you work as an analyst for this number of years, you get promoted to an associate, then a team leader, then and it goes on like that. With entrepreneurship, many times the business is as big or as large or as influential as the founder is.
Right.
So you need that mentor. Just because that straight line that we spoke about does not exist in entrepreneurship, it can be a little vague to see how would my business continue to grow. And getting a mentor who's done something similar, or maybe not even similar, but understands the challenges of entrepreneurship, can be a great source of wisdom for entrepreneurs. So I'd say if entrepreneurs if they do have access to mentors, take advantage of it. It is so critical in your growth journey.
Well said. Tochi, and my last question to you, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own amazing background and the work you're doing and your understanding of an entrepreneurial mindset, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away to develop an entrepreneurial mindset?
3 lessons for viewers listening to take away today. Number 1, I would say develop a bias for action. Get out of your head, write it down on paper, and go do it. Start where you are, use what you have, and just do it, like the Nike slogan goes.
Right.
That's the first bit. The second bit is people. The people that you surround yourself with, the people that you share your ideas with, the mentors you have, the sponsors you have, these are all very critical. Maintain relationships with the people that you have around you. And especially if you're starting out as a first-time founder, sometimes you may not be able to pay financial compensation to the people that you have working on your team. So it's super critical that you're able to keep them motivated and inspired to build out the vision together. So first is developing a bias for action. The second is people management and having the right people around you. The third thing I would say is never stop learning. But I know a lot of people say never stop learning, but my challenge to the viewers and the founders listening is make a learning plan. Because you have to put some intentionality behind it. This is not just scrolling on social media and consuming the content that you see. It is make a plan to say, I'm going to read 1 book a week or 1 book a month, or I'm going to attend 1 seminar on this every quarter, or be deliberate about learning, and it will pay off in leaps and
Amazing. On that note, Tochi, and your 3 amazing lessons: develop a bias for action, go do it. Second, you said people are critical, surround yourself with really good people. And the third one you said was never stop learning. But what is even more important is make a learning plan Thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. Thank you for speaking to me about so many different aspects of an entrepreneurial mindset that each one of us needs to develop. And I loved what you told me, that every one of us can be an entrepreneur. Thank you for speaking to me. Good luck with your new venture, Mesh Venture Partners. And
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.